Perfect. Okay. So the meeting is being officially recorded. Okay, guys, thank you so much for your patience. We've got it all set up now. Um, so welcome everybody. Thank you so much for taking time today to join for our little information session on the new Indigenous Languages Services Standards. Really happy to have all of you guys here today, and I realize it's summer, so we very much appreciate that you've made time to make it today. So just as I mentioned before, the meeting is being recorded. If you have any questions or comments, just save them till the end. We're gonna click stop record after the presentation. So if you have questions, you can ask them then. But today is just an information session. So we're just sharing with you about the new service standards, and then we will be following up with phone calls to each and every one of you in the coming week to 2 weeks. So we will call each of you on the phone, and we're going to ask you a few questions just as a follow-up to gauge your interest. And if you have any questions for us about the service standards, that's a great time to ask us as well. So moving on, so going to slide number 2. So I love this quote. So this is from the president of the 73rd session of the United Nations General Assembly. So each Indigenous language is priceless for humanity. They are treasures overflowing with history, values, literature, spirituality, perspectives, and knowledge that have been developed over millennia, resulting from their interaction with nature, with forests, rivers, and oceans. When a language becomes extinct, all of those memories die with it, all that history and all that science. So I really love this quote. I think it's so beautiful, and it really demonstrates how important Indigenous languages are to Indigenous people's ways of life. And right now, Indigenous languages across the world, as we know, are in a critical state. So the United Nations actually proclaimed this decade, so from 2022 to 2032, as the International Decade of Indigenous Languages. And this was really to draw attention to the critical situation of Indigenous languages around the world, particularly here in the NWT, we're facing that as well. And to basically to draw attention to the fact that many of these languages are going extinct. We do not have enough fluent speakers anymore, and really to bring together stakeholders and resources to work towards the preservation and revitalization of Indigenous languages. So right now, our territory, we are facing a very serious state as the numbers of our fluent speakers continue to decline every year throughout the territory. So as of right now, there are very limited numbers of working translators and interpreters for the 9 official Indigenous languages. These numbers obviously continue to decline every year as interpreters and translators reach retirement age. So your work, I cannot stress enough how important your work is and how much we value your contributions, everyone. Your translation and interpretation work is so valuable, especially in a time where we're seeing less and less fluent speakers. So I just want to say a really big thank you, Masi Cho, Quyanainni, for your contributions in your interpretation and translation work. So as of right now, so the current number of active interpreters and translators. So I just want to share this because I think it's really important to see the numbers that we have right now. Now, when I say active, these numbers don't capture obviously all of the interpreters and translators that we have in the NWT, but these are the ones that are working with ECE, that are working with the Legislative Assembly, and that are working with the Department of Health and Social Services. So the number of active translators with us, ECE, And I'm so sorry, I just realized I forgot to introduce myself at the beginning of the video. So my name is Rochelle, everyone. I'm the Indigenous Languages Project Services Coordinator with Department of Education, Culture, and Employment. Some of you may recognize my name from emails coming to you from the request_Indigenous Languages at gov.nt.ca. That email address, I often use that to reach out to you when there are translation requests from different departments within the GNWT. So within ECE, so the number of active translators. So when I say active, I mean these are the translators that we've been able to get a hold of within the last 6 months and who have taken on translation jobs for us. So for Dene Kede, we only have one. Dene Suhline, we only have one active. Dene Jatier, we have 4. Gwich'in 2, Nehiyawewen 1, Clicho 10, Inuiaktun 1, Inuktitut 2, and Inuvialuktun we have 16. So as you can see, for some of these Dene languages, we really only have 1 or 2 active translators or interpreters that we're able to reach out to. So really low numbers. The number of current interpreters that are working on contract with the Legislative Assembly. So they have a little bit higher numbers for some of the Dene languages than we do. Again, this is for interpretation. But as you can see, these are the numbers for the Legislative Assembly. And then the Department of Health and Social Services has their Indigenous patient liaisons. That's through the Stanton Wellness Program. And so these patient liaisons, they're basically Stanton staff that are full-time equivalents. So they have full-time positions and they can do, I believe, both interpretation and translation. But they are on full-time and they are basically there to assist patients that are coming into the hospital that either struggle to speak English or require interpretation or translation services. So they have that as part of their job description on top of whatever else they assist Stanton with. So they have 1 full-time equivalent and 1 relief. So this is basically just somebody on call. You can see that the numbers are, again, also very, very low. So it really is a critical time. The Department of Education, Culture, and Employment, right now we're looking at succession planning. So we're looking at how can we work towards building up our interpreter and translator field in the NWT, ways that we can draw in people to this field because we just do not have enough at the moment. And the ones that we do have, again, we're so grateful for your contributions and your work for the GNWT. So moving on, so as we all know, there's 9 official Indigenous languages of the Northwest Territories. And the Official Languages Act of the Northwest Territories actually identifies that regional, area, and community offices in the Northwest Territories are required to provide services in the local Indigenous languages. So we have a map of all our languages and some of the dialects right here. So the Official Languages Act actually says that it is mandatory and required to provide services in the 9 official languages. So moving on, so the NWT Bureau of Statistics actually provides data on the number of Indigenous languages speakers every 5 years. This is really interesting data. It obviously doesn't capture everyone. And if you look at the map here, it does show that the data is capturing those who are 15 years and older. But if you visit this link, which you can also access once we send out the video, you can watch the video and access that link. This will take you to the Bureau of Statistics to learn more, and it's very interesting to see the statistics on fluent speakers in the NWT. So moving on, so we have kind of 4 key guiding documents. You don't really need to know much about these, but I'll just provide like a really brief overview of each because they actually support the new Indigenous Language Services Standards. So starting with the Official Languages Act. So the Official Languages Act was established in 1988, and it identified 11 official languages of the Northwest Territories, 9 of those being the official Indigenous languages of the NWT. And Section 11 of the Official Languages Act actually notes that any member of the public in the territory has the right to communicate with and to receive available services from any region, area, or community office of a government institution in any official language. And this means the 9 official Indigenous languages as well. The government institution regulations flow from the Official Languages Act, and the government institution regulations actually identifies the entities. Okay, so this is the government departments, the government agencies that have to adhere to the Official Languages Act. It also names significant demand communities for French. And flowing under the regulations is the official languages policy. And the policy notes that the Department of Education is actually responsible for coordinating the delivery of official language services by providing support and sharing resources. And the policy also notes the departments that are responsible for delivering services in the official languages. And part of this work is something called an active offer. So there's an active offer. Basically, what that means is it's something that the public sees that notifies them, the public, that they are allowed to access Indigenous language services and that they have a right to. And then finally, we have the official languages guidelines. So these are just written instructions that establish specific responsibilities with respect to the use of official languages in the delivery of GNWT programs and services. So moving on to the Indigenous Languages Services Standards. So we're so excited to share this with you guys today. So over the past several years, the Department of Education, Culture, and Employment, and specifically the Indigenous Languages Secretariat, has been working on drafting the Indigenous Languages Services Standards. And this is basically a document that has been created to support GNWT employees and GNWT staff and institutions in understanding their service delivery requirements as set out in the Official Languages Act. So the Act basically says that says that everybody has the right to access services in one of the 9 official Indigenous languages. And so the services standards support the Act by basically setting out a guideline for GNWT staff on how they can meet those service delivery requirements. So the standards will help government institutions implement and operationalize the Act by providing staff with specific direction, advice, or recommendations on service scenarios. So for example, if somebody comes into a government office or goes into a department for a service, they have the right to request that service in their Indigenous language if it's one of the 9 official Indigenous languages. And so these standards provide basically advice and direction for GNWT staff as to how can they help support that individual to meet their language rights and provide that service, for example, in the language that they've asked for. So the standards have been approved in February by Cabinet. So they are government approved now. We will be having a public announcement around the standards sometime in 2026. But for right now, they're cabinet approved. And here at ECE, we're working really hard to roll out the standards. And basically, what that means is that over the next year, there will be a phased implementation of the standards across GNWT departments and agencies. And so myself and my colleague Susan Saunders, we will be working together to train GNWT staff on how to provide Indigenous languages services to the public. So how can we support the public? And as I mentioned, there will be a public announcement in 2026. So really, really exciting. Obviously, this is not something new. Everyone has always, because of the Act, everybody has always had the right to request a service in their Indigenous language if it's one of the 9 official Indigenous languages. However, these standards, we have not had a document yet that will really help GNWT departments and institutions and guide staff members in supporting the public with their service needs. So this is something new. It's something that it's another document on top of the guidelines and the policy that support the Official Languages Act. And it's really exciting because we think that when the announcement of the standards is public in 2026, that there's a lot of people that will feel empowered when they go into a GNWT office and really feel empowered that they can ask for services in their Indigenous language. So what do the standards mean in terms of the interpreter and translator context? So among other things, the standards will allow, the public already can, as I mentioned, but when the public is made aware of this, it basically allows anyone from the public to seek government services in any official Indigenous language. It makes them aware of it. And so this seeking services in any Indigenous language could involve translations, interpretations, or both, and it could involve translations by telephone or interpretations over the phone or in person. So, what might this look like when it rolls out? Well, somebody could request a Dene interpreter for their upcoming doctor or vaccination appointment in Toledo or in Yellowknife, for example. There may be somebody else who might request an Inuvialuktun translation for a housing application that they're filling out in Tuktoyaktuk. Or somebody may request a Willaday interpreter for a driver's license renewal appointment. So these are just a couple examples of many, many thousands of different scenarios that could happen. And again, as I mentioned, people already have the right to access this, but with the public announcement of the standards, we think that a lot of people will kind of take advantage, see that is a wonderful thing, that they can go into a government service office and ask for a service in their Indigenous language, and they will utilize that, which is great. It's what we want. So what does this mean for our interpreters and our
I'm sorry,
translators? Yeah, Mary.
Rochelle. Yes, I have
Hi.
to get going. I have to go to my appointment, and I really
Hi.
appreciate Rochelle. I'm so happy to hear this. And
Aw.
if if you can send me a link to this on email, please.
You bet. I will
Yes.
send it after the fact. Sounds great. Mary, thank you so much for
Okay.
joining
Thank you.
today.
Masi. Yeah. Bye.
Okay. Bye. Merci. So what does this mean for our interpreters and our translators? Well, we're expecting that once the public becomes aware of these new standards, the volume of requests for interpretation and translation services will increase. And we think it's going to increase quite exponentially. So if this interests you, basically what this means for your work as a translator or as an interpreter is that more frequent work is going to be made available, which is really exciting. So a couple things for you to think about. So couple things is how available you are to take on additional jobs with your current life circumstances or your commitments, how you feel about translating, how you feel about interpreting, and how you feel about potentially doing both. And if you feel comfortable doing both, types of project work that you feel most comfortable with. So, for example, is there certain content or subject matter that you prefer? So, maybe you're really interested in health subject matter, but you don't feel as comfortable with subject matter that relates to the judicial system, the courts. Maybe you love education content. So, really, what you feel most comfortable working with your vocabulary, your skill set, your terminology. How comfortable you feel with translating, interpreting, and whether you're able to do both. I just mentioned that earlier. So also how you feel about interpreting and translating with tight deadlines. Because one of the things that we're going to see is if somebody comes in to request an interpreter for their upcoming doctor's appointment, that doctor's appointment could be tomorrow, or it could be in 2 days, or it could be a week from now, or a month from now. But if it's a day away, or if it's in 2 days, there could be tight deadlines, and it could be a very tight turnaround in terms of trying to secure an interpreter for that appointment. So, how do you feel about working with tight deadlines? Is that something that you're comfortable with, and would you be open to that? Um, how you feel about working remotely? So, would you feel comfortable doing interpretation virtually, so over Zoom or over Teams, or if you prefer to be in person for interpretation. Um, and then, of course, the last one is potentially how you feel about working after hours. So, how do you feel about, working during the hours of 5 to 9 and being contacted in the evening if an emergency situation comes up and we need an interpreter or a translator. So, just kind of how you feel about those things. So, thank you so much again to everybody who made it out today for the Zoom meeting. We're so glad that you were able to join. For those of you who are not able to join, we totally understand. It's summertime, and we will be following up with everybody in the coming weeks. So, after I'm done this Zoom meeting, I'm going to send out an email to everybody. And I will let you know that we'll be calling you within the next 1 to 2 weeks. You'll be receiving a call from either myself, my colleague Susan Saunders, or my colleagues Satish or Wime. They're actually on right now. Once I finish sharing, I'll introduce you guys. I'll ask them if they just don't mind sharing their video. So we'll be calling, I'll be following up with an email, and then we'll be calling you in the next couple weeks just to answer any questions that you guys have about the service standards that are coming out, as well as to ask you guys some questions about your interest and availability based on some of these things that we've just shared with you to think about. So once again, thank you so much, you guys. My name is Rochelle Hilderman, and I'm the Services Project Coordinator with the Indigenous Languages Secretariat. Here is my telephone with my extension number. Please feel free to call me anytime if you'd like to chat. As you all know, many of you know me through this email address here. So if you have any questions and you prefer to email, you're more than welcome to email the request Indigenous Languages email address, and I'll respond. So thank you so much, everyone, for attending. I'll just stop sharing this now. And then maybe I'll just ask Wime and Satish to introduce themselves real quick before we finish the call. Perfect. So we have Satish there. Satish, if you don't mind giving a little wave. So Satish is also going to be calling you guys along with myself and Susan. And then May, if you don't mind giving a wave as well. That's May there. Thank you guys so much for joining with us today. And we really look forward to calling each and every one of you and hearing what you think about the standards and working with you to see what's possible over the coming year. So Masi Cho, I'm just going to stop recording the video now in case anybody has anything they want to say just for privacy reasons.